Just so everybody's on the same page, the Electoral Justice Initiative is a cohort of 20 plus organizations, people of color-based power building organizations that are working with real, I'm going to use campaigns in the Little C campaign context, Little C campaign long or short-term campaigns to move proportional representation in your local communities, from city council, school board, county council, things like that. And the Multiracial Democracy Project is a cohort that includes 15 civil rights and voting rights organizations from across the country that are examining the impact of alternative electoral systems in communities of color, right? Not just saying like, oh yeah, that sounds nice, let's do this, but okay, let's get all the lawyers in the room and talk about exactly, and all the organizers, the national organizers in the room and talk about how this is really, 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 really gonna impact people of color. Sometimes we have to have these conversations without the white people, because we gotta ask these questions and really interrogate how our communities are going to be affected, right? And so that is an amazing space that I understand Multiracial Democracy Project has created to ask those questions for your communities. Does that sound right?
You are correct.
Okay, great. So, in lieu of doing, I'm a kind of a silly person, so in lieu of doing formal introductions, I'm gonna set a timer and we're gonna play a game. This game is called My People, My People. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say a thing about my people, and then y'all are gonna say something about your people, and we're gonna get to know each other a little better. Okay, ready? So example, my people, we'll eat stinky foods, but we don't think it's stinky. And then someone else is gonna go. Ready? Okay, no context. Here we go. 2-minute timer. I'll go first. My people don't shave their legs and we don't care.
My people likes to dance salsa and we care.
My people like really spicy food.
My people can tell if your turquoise is real or not.
Whoa.
I should never tell. Is this work? Yeah, it's working. My people, me specifically, like to tell stories of really excessively large birds taking you away to kind of keep you in line. So,
my people will sing you beautiful serenade songs over karaoke, and it doesn't matter if it's a private room or a bar. They're gonna sing it as if they were in the shower, which means loud and proud.
My people really loves to watch soap operas because nothing like real, but everything is real.
Sorry, got a little stuck. Okay, I'll pass. Sorry.
My people will tease you unless they don't like you.
it's actually a good one. Not speaking to me specifically, but generally my people are on cultural time, which is a little bit different than
My people's cultural time is 1 to 2 hours late if you're actually, yeah, okay. Oh, you're on the same page? All right. Let's go one more round.
Well, my people likes to be on the beach, at the beach, with the beach, and even though you are not really there, you are always there.
My people like to share their opinions.
My people know that if you tell an auntie, then everyone will know.
We're really funny. That's it.
All right, do a round of applause for that. Do we feel like we got to know our panelists a little better? Okay, we're going to get to know more about what they're doing, but I like to start off being silly. Okay, so vocabulary. I want to keep things kind of making sense today. And we're going to use a lot of acronyms as we have been, but I just wanted to make sure we take a moment to really clarify. So when we're talking about the work of proportional representation, oftentimes people will like conflate proportional representation, ranked choice voting, proportional ranked choice voting, STV, IRV. What are some other acronyms? There's so many. WTA, FTPP, first past the post. Okay, so today, for the purposes of this panel, When we are talking about single winner ranked choice voting, we'll either call it single winner ranked choice voting, or we'll call it IRV, which is instant runoff voting, or we'll call it ranked choice voting, winner take all, right? That's all we're gonna say. That's what we're gonna call it. Okay. And if we're talking about proportional ranked choice voting, we'll either call it proportional ranked choice voting, PRCV, multi-winner ranked choice voting, or STV, which is known as single transferable vote. Are those the words we're using? All right, okay. All right, so now let's go down the line. What is your organization doing with regards, reintroduce yourself and talk about your organization. What is your organization doing with regards to proportional representation and electoral systems reform? And why do you focus on the systems level work? You wanna go first?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, Rodolfo Gutierrez here, Executive Director for HACER, and welcoming you again to Minnesota, the beautiful Minnesota. And at HACER, we do research, and our research is focused particularly with the Latino community, but we work with everybody else. And our work focus on proportional representation is, as you heard already, we do have a system that it is very close to proportional representation, the ranked choice voting in Minneapolis and in St. Paul. So what we are looking for is to integrate more people into this process with better knowledge about the system, but also to expand the system to other cities in the state. Particularly thinking at this point in Washington City, where 42% of the population is Latina, but we have no member in the city council with Latino ascendants. So we want to change that. We want to create new kind of approaches and understanding of this, and also perhaps break down the misunderstanding and disinformation that it is around this process, because so many people really fear about changing the way they participate in electoral systems. So we are participating on that. We are basing our participation in alliances and also in research. And Rodrigo can add a little bit more.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Rodrigo Gutierrez. I also work for HACER, so a lot of the things I would mention have already been mentioned, but I would just reiterate that we do really look at the data, and we are really have a lot of community partners. We at HACER have a lot of partnerships with organizations across different racial identities and within our within the Latino identity, and we're looking not just at rural places like Worthington, like Rodolfo mentioned. We're also looking at the Twin Cities. We've already heard the amazing changes that have been occurring due to ranked choice voting being adopted in the Twin Cities, and we're also looking to see how the demographics are changing in the future, to see how sustainable ranked choice voting compared to proportional representation will be for the Twin Cities as well as Minnesota as a whole.
Amazing. I'm April Fournier. I am Dene, or citizen of the Navajo Nation, and the managing director for Native Organizers Alliance. I'm also an elected official, so I'm an at-large city councilor in Portland, Maine. Thank you. The first Native person ever elected to the city council in Portland, Maine in 2020. So yay for that, but also yikes. It took us a long time to get there, but we did it because of ranked choice voting. And so it wasn't proportional ranked choice. We're helping the community along, but it allowed it to happen. So it's the single winner ranked choice voting. But what it also enabled to happen is after I was elected, we also had our first Puerto Rican person elected to council, and then our second Black woman elected to council, our first queer person elected to council. So all of a sudden, we had a minority majority in one of the whitest states in the whole United States, which happened because we made those reforms. Where's Anna? There's Anna. Anna Keller and I have known each other for a while since that election, and we got ranked choice voting enacted for municipal elections in Maine, so it was really incredible. But at Native Organizers Alliance, we are not the attorneys in the room with the Multiracial Democracy Project. We're the organizers in the room, and so we do our work in communities all over the country, rural, res, urban, really trying to help our communities understand the connection between their values and their organizing power and these electoral systems that we have, which also means the transformation, because we want to make sure all of these communities have a voice in the systems that are going to really help them step into their power. But there is so much disconnection in a lot of our communities and so much misinformation and untruths that we have to organize and build relationships first before we can walk forward. And we, as an organization, will never go into a community that we're not invited into. And so that's why we spend so much time in organizing, building relationships so that we can be good relatives as we're starting to make these changes.
Brian Smith, he, him pronouns, co-director of Tribal Democracy Project, based out of Oregon. I'm actually not from Oregon, so I'm a Muskogee out of Oklahoma, and I grew up in Arizona, but I've been in Oregon for 20 plus years. The other co-director is sitting right over there, it's Jalen Suppa, and she is from Oregon. She's from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, which is the largest tribal community in Oregon. So we've got lots of buckets of work. A large component is civics engagement and understanding like treaty rights and our own tribal constitutions in Oregon, community work. Then we have work with, so we're 501c4, so we do Native American candidate work. But then the electoral reform component, we're very high on proportional ranked choice voting. Because basically it's we can do all the civics engagement, get people to turn out, right, and to do that. But if you can't get your preferences in the legislative bodies or the governmental bodies, then what's the point? And so we need those reforms. We did a lot of work early on with redistricting, but after meeting up with Colin at More Equitable Democracy, we're like, proportional ranked choice voting is definitely the way to go. So. Our long run objectives are to get this passed someday at the legislative level, right? But also this is important at local levels, whether it's city council, county commissions, school boards in particular. But we think it's important to get this done everywhere, even if you don't have a large presence with tribal communities. But it's also important to note that all communities are on ceded lands and territories from tribes. So our areas of focus, we don't necessarily have all the time a lot of tribal folks. However, for instance, like we're working a lot in Central Oregon, one county in particular, Deschutes, it's on the ceded lands of 3 different tribes, including Jalen's. So,
Tell me more about this work in Deschutes.
yeah, so we have a number of things going on, and kind of divided into 2 different things. We're working on things with school boards, which is kind of more, it's a mix between electoral and legal. So in Oregon, you have an Oregon Voting Rights Act, which I think MED you all helped with back in 2019, right? But this is specific just for school boards. And so we're looking at ways to kind of change the way folks on the school board are elected to proportional ranked choice voting. And so there is a school board that we're working on in Deschutes related to that. So Deschutes, if you all know, that's where Bend, Oregon is, and it's actually adjacent to Jefferson County, which is where the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs is, and it's on the, like I said, ceded territories of 3 different tribes. But really, we have a heavy focus on the county commission there and on the Bend City Council for a number of reasons. The county commission currently, they vote at large, single winner, which is obviously the worst format, right? They've recently expanded or changed to nonpartisan, and then most recently expanded to 5 commissioners. And so where they're about to have a primary, it's a nonpartisan position. Ballots get mailed out, I think, tomorrow for the first time. That context is important for kind of the political environment there. And so they have 4 positions up. 2 of them are new. But in the middle of all this, there's also a push by the current commission. So Deschutes tends to lean Democratic in the past several election cycles, but under this weird quirk, the current commission is a conservative majority. So when they expanded to 5, they kind of saw the writing on the wall, like, hey, let's put zones, 5 zones up there. Let's get a gerrymandered map, get this passed to try to protect our conservative majority. And then, of course, you've got the current system. So in this kind of environment, we've introduced our own proposal to use proportional ranked choice voting instead. So it's constitutional in Oregon. We already have it in Oregon at the city level, thanks to folks like, Jenny Lee. So this isn't new. We're other trailblazers have kind of, so. And then with the city council, similarly, where it's all at large, and I think they have 6 different positions. And so the concept there is turn it into a proportional representation format. Now, with the commission in particular, we're actually, well, I can probably answer that with a follow-up question.
My most important question is, when can I volunteer on my own time to fly to Deschutes and start gathering signatures for a election in what year?
So our objective, we submitted the petition language to the county. So however long that works out, usually based on Oregon laws, the local, it probably could be up to a month, right? Before we see that. So it could happen as early as later in May, but definitely by June and July, we're collecting signatures. And our objective is to get this on the November ballot. So we want to collect these signatures by the first week of August. And we're not starting fresh. We actually already have a campaign operation going and an organizer that have been doing the work for several months now, as far as kind of getting the volunteers out there, as far as message testing, getting pledges for this concept, and kind of building up the campaign infrastructure, so that we'll both have kind of a both door-to-door and street canvassing operation.
So if you didn't get that, proportional ranked choice voting is going to be on the ballot November 2026 in Oregon. That's very exciting. Okay. So I have a 2-part question for folks in HACER. Tell me about where and why you want proportional ranked choice voting, and how's it been going, given all that's going on, the conversations that you've been having?
Yeah, okay. So as I said, we do tend to focus at the Latino perspective. There are many other communities that we also would love to see represented, but we do have a bias. Being a Hispanic organization, we look at Hispanic communities. And I think Rodolfo already mentioned that we were looking at Worthington and St. James, which are 2 cities whose Latino population exploded. Like since 2009, before 2009, they were 2% of the population, and now they're 30% of the population. The population exploded, and they don't have any representation in the city council. And we do know that there's limits to what can be done. Like right now, they are a small city that's considered what we call a statutory city, which means they have to follow state regulations. They're unable to directly change how the electoral system works locally. There are bills that are being debated that would change that, which would allow them to change their system so that it could be more proportionate, so that this strong minority could get representation. We would love to see those bills get passed. There's also the Voting Rights Act, which has been passed here and strengthened here in the state of Minnesota, which would allow those, which will kind of supersede that statutory regulation. And we're kind of working to see if the community is interested in pursuing a legal challenge through the Minnesota State Voting Rights Act. That was a little bit interrupted during Operation Metro Surge, but that is one path forward. We are also looking at the Twin Cities. We have, thanks to work from wonderful organizers like Gene Massey, we have seen ranked choice voting get adopted in the Twin Cities. And we have seen incredible success with normal ranked choice voting in achieving the kind of goals that we are hoping to achieve through proportional representation. We also want to look in the future, to what extent can that be true in the future, given that the populations are still changing. When a ranked choice voting was adopted versus how we're still living in both cities as being majority white population. Right now, St. Paul has become a majority minority city, and still not a majority minority electorate, but soon, by the next census or two give or take 2 years, St. Paul will become a majority minority electorate. It will take a little bit longer in Minneapolis, but these changing demographics do illustrate a reason why, even though we have a system that works in the Twin Cities, we do need to think about in the future to what extent, what kind of systems are going to be the future-proof. And that's the kind of how things we are looking at. Rodolfo, do you want to mention anything else?
Yeah, just to add is like we did have some sort of approach, and you mentioned that we were working before the search took place. We talk to people. We are a community-based participatory research organization, and we ask people what do they think. And when we engage in this process, we ask people about why they want to participate in the electoral process, and the answer is I don't want to. Because I always see the same candidates, and I always see the same programs. I always see people that are not like me. And the possibility of including more kind of people that are similar to the people that are going to be voting is proportional representation. So that's why we are promoting this. And also, we want to see more kind of, say, a system that can better inform people, because we lack of information. When we went to Worthington, and Osvaldo is here, he was talking to people. Several people were saying, no, we don't want to embrace ranked choice voting because it's too complicated. It is very difficult. We don't know how to do. What is that? That first, second, and third options, or all that is kind of, I don't know nothing. And furthermore, we did have someone who said, I cannot vote for any Latino because they don't know how to do things. The people who know what to do and how to do are whites, because they've been told that. So I guess what we want to say here is that we need to take this advantage and bring real information with how things are going to be working with new system for electoral processes, but also to bring more people like us, like everybody here, that is going to be representing us, and we do have options. Otherwise, we have no option, and so many people are opting for not to participate because they see only candidates that they don't look like them. So that is why we are engaged. And I want to say also, ICE being here all the time. Yeah? We being witnessing and documenting events in which people, before the search operation, they were coming to the court and they were taken by ICE because they were just there. So we've been there. Now it's being more obvious, it's being more aggressive, it's being offensive for everyone. So it's more visible, but people are there. The thing is that we need to really respond to these situations and be ready for what is coming. Somebody mentioned it before, because they are going to come back.
And they haven't gone away. I would just mention that. Like, ICE is still taking people. People are still being disappeared. It has toned down. They've been a little smarter on how they've been working, but they haven't gone away. And we just need to acknowledge that. And the impact that the community had felt during ICE, during Operation Metro Surge, we still feel that. We still go, when we go to the supermarkets, when we go to the restaurants, they still have people waiting by the door to before you enter to make sure that ICE is not entering. They still have people watching those places. So like ICE was here before, and ICE is still here. That Metro Surge was a big media moment, and it was a big coming together, rallying moment, but it was not the beginning nor the end of the work that's being done.
Yeah. Thank you. April, I'm curious, number one, about what are some of the underlying values that your organization leads with when it comes to transformational change, and how does that apply as you're really examining proportional representation in your work?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the way that, our organization works, like I mentioned, we don't go anywhere that we're not invited, but it's solely focused on building relationships, because however we're going to move systems, however we're going to share education, it's based on trust and it's based on building these connections. And so when we're thinking about transforming a system, and this was talked about a little bit earlier when we talk about funding initiatives, we're not thinking about like a one or 2 year initiative. We're actually thinking 7 generations into the future. So we're thinking about when we have all of the things present that should be present, that all of our people deserve, what does that look like in 140 years? And so then how do we build backwards and create the steps in the intermediate to make that possible? And that starts with this relationship building. It starts with gathering information from the community. One of the things that we're doing right now is, with this last administration, Indian Affairs, so a lot of the things that are done for Indian country go through the federal government because it's the nation-to-nation relationship. Well, when you have a more unfriendly federal government. They've never actually been very friendly. You start to lose access to information. So much of the information for our communities, the data that we need for maternal and infant mortality, for food security, for housing, is all housed within the Department of the Interior or the different federal agencies. So how do you suppress a people? You take away the information that they need to be able to create advocacy for their services. So when we go to try and get reports to say these are the impacts of what's happening on our community, or we try to get data to be able to advocate for funding or grants, guess what? All of those things are gone. And so we don't have access to the information that we need. And so we have to create our own data to be able to, one, understand what's going on in our communities over the last 18 months, but also then create pathways for them to be able to then use this information to go to funders, to go to grant makers, to go to their own legislatures to say, this is what's going on, this is how it's harming our community, this is what we don't have access to, so please fulfill your obligations. And so we're actually launching a community survey in 15 different communities around the country to have conversations. So not just here's a piece of paper, fill this out and let us know what we need. This is getting back to our traditional practices of visiting, of being in relationship, of thinking about like true organizing. Who do you know in your community if, I won't swear, I promise, if it hits the fan, who are you going to call to say, hey, I need you to come over and help me out? I know we all can probably think about 5 people on our hand, right? Who would be those first 5 that you would call? We're going into these different communities and getting all of our communities back into that practice so that we can start to build these circles that, like we saw here in Minneapolis, like I saw up in Maine, the communities that had those really strong relationships were able to stand up quickly and create those circles of protection, create those circles of resources, create those circles of response because they've been doing that for decades. And so that's really what we want to help communities get back to, because if we're not connected, if our communities aren't educated or have the resources to be able to put food on the table, to have stable housing, to be able to be healthy, how can you even think about electoral reform? And so that's really what we're getting back to, is how do we build very strong communities, because that's where the power is. And then when we have strong communities, they can step forward, empower, and really transform the systems.
Thank you so much. And then, Brian, I'm just curious, what kind of response have you been getting as you're talking to community members? Because you're also out there talking to community members about the efforts, right? Not yet gathering signatures, but I know that you've done a little bit of work on the ground. What are folks saying when you talk to regular folks, when you talk to them?
Yeah, I think, and it's important, like when a political campaign, there's a large intersection that's different than community organizing, community work, right? So I think they should be used as a tool to move an organizing agenda, right? It's just one other tool in the whole toolbox. But in this context, it's important to understand kind of the psychology to getting these things passed. And when it's structured in a way of, okay, what are the outcomes? Like these systems, which are problematic, you get your output sucks, right? And why is that? What are the interests that are kind of dictating this game? And how do you address that issue to get better outcomes, right? Whether it's, so affordability, so it's more than just better representation, like definitely that's important, and that's what gets you to these better outcomes. But
You don't just talk about the math?
Yeah, we just never talk about the math. Some people do want to know about that, but
We redirect them to the values.
So in that sense, I think it's very appealing. It really depends on who the voters are, right, and which message resonates. And it's not to say it's a choose your own adventure, but it kind of is. But in this current political climate in Deschutes, what's going on with redistricting nationwide, and then the folks locally, politicians, kind of taking that cue that has resonated, where it's like, okay, because not only do you have local politicians trying to force this gerrymander and people understanding the outcomes of that, but you also have the current commission is a problem as well, and that's under the current system, right? And then you have I think I mentioned like a lot of Democrats in Oregon have been against ranked choice voting, right? Like definitely your conservative right-leaning folks have been against it. But in the local context, we're seeing people kind of flip, right, on that, because they're looking at the current county commission races, which are just wide open. They're seeing a lot of what they view as vote splitting. They're seeing kind of like, okay, we should be able to have more voices, and this shouldn't be structured the way this is. And so they are recognizing, and it's mainly self-interest, right? So when you have a campaign, an electoral campaign, really, unfortunately, you're going after to convince someone something that's good for BIPOC communities, and you need kind of a voting block to come in line. You're not saying, hey, do the right thing. That's usually a mistake. It's like, well, when you do this right thing, this helps your self-interest right here that you want, right? And you're not going to get to the bottom of that in polling. Like message testing, in my view, it's very pseudo-scientific enterprise when it comes to electoral outcomes. So people will tell you how they're going to vote, right? And that's pretty accurate. But why they vote that way, I don't think is very accurate, and it can kind of mislead you in the wrong direction. So coming with that premise, I think we've kind of seen a lot of things where now that they understand how these bad outcomes do affect you, and we're seeing, like I said, we're seeing groups of folks, we're seeing certain organizations, the Democratic Party locally that didn't take a stand with ranked choice voting in 2024, and a lot of their leadership were against it. These same folks are all for it now, and it's coming out in communications. So it's that's so the different messages for different folks. We're kind of like with this, we're kind of seeing like it's one thing to get these signatures at the ballot, but this is going to inform the process going into the campaign on what our paid communications will be. If that makes sense. So.
I mean, it does feel like in this moment there seems to be an appetite for more transformational change. People are, I don't know, is it just me that like people are actually starting to see systems a little bit more? I mean, I actually want to shout out one of the folks in the room who was not expecting it, Deputy Director of Maryland Ranked Choice Voting, Owen, over here, because does anyone know what happened in Greenbelt, Maryland? There was an advisory vote last November where it passed by 67%, 6-7. Proportional representation passed 6-7 advisory vote. Sorry, I'm just so excited about it. I get it. But yeah, no, this is actually a huge deal. Proportional ranked choice voting passed by 67%, this advisory vote for Greenbelt, and Ranked Choice Voting Maryland is doing the work to make sure that their city council does the will of the voters and actually implements proportional ranked choice voting. So big ups for you all there. Oh. Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for that. I want to move on to the next question. So a big question in the reform space is how far and how fast, right? Do we warm folks up to electoral reform by starting with single winner ranked choice voting, which often is an improvement, as we've seen here in Maine, and can definitely change things. But they still are within the winner-take-all paradigm, especially in this moment of crisis for our democracy. Do we just go no holds barred for the most transformative system, or do we, kind of like stop and get these wins as we can get them, right? Or is that the win that we can get right now, or not? We have to ask that question. I would say. Well, let me ask you all what you would do. What would you say to folks who are working in jurisdictions who are just starting to dream about electoral reform and how far and how fast they should go? Which order do you want to go in? April, why don't you go first?
I'll go first, since everyone was staring at me. Jeez.
It's because you look so nice.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think one of the things that we do in organizing is, like I said before, we move at the speed of trust. And I know one of the panels earlier really talked about also knowing your community. So what's going to work for Portland, Maine is not going to necessarily work for Second Portland, Oregon. I'm just kidding. I love you, Portland, Oregon. Shots fired. No, really, truly. I think, I would have this lovely vision of being able to say, let's just do it and, be as transformative as possible. Not every community has the same resources, not every community has the same opposing forces, and really when we're thinking of this polarizing moment, we also have to think about those who are in elected office who have the very, very real threat of political violence. And so I think it's being able to have this 360-degree view of what's happening in your own community and understanding what is the right size fit for that transformation. And you can't do this walk alone. And you can't go from the top down and tell this community, hey, I think this is a good idea. This is what you should do. It really has to be you are walking with the community. And that starts with building those relationships, building those connections, and understanding who's already been in the community that you're thinking about doing this work for decades in other ways. So it might not be called proportional representation, or it might not be called electoral reform, but they've, in many cases, have organizers that have been doing lots of different democracy work, and maybe not necessarily calling that, but going in and learning really about what the community is already doing, build those relationships, build that trust, and then do that work together.
Thank you. Why don't we have HACER go next?
Yeah, well, I must confess, and sorry about that, I am a historian. And
Oh, God.
oh gosh, yeah. Sometimes I say, what a big deal that. Well, fact is, this country has over 200 years of history, and electoral system that it's over 200 years old, and it is in the wild world the most stable and unchanged system, even though the society has been changing. So today we do confront kind of an old system that it was created, and somebody mentioned it before in the panel, for a specific kind of population to participate. That excluded women, excluded slaves, excluded everybody else.
Non-landowners.
Not landowners, only landowners were participating there.
White wealthy landowners.
There you go. There you go. So today we are seeing kind of a very, very dramatic changes, and Minnesota is still one of the whitest states in the country, but yet we are reaching out almost 32% of diversity in this state. And in a different way than it was mentioned before, only 8% of representation is in the decision-making positions here in the state. So we see that lack of representation as being something really, really important to address. And we need to change that, because I mentioned already Washington City, where the population is 42% Latina, but it has no representation at all. Only white people are there governing in the city council. But furthermore, in the school boards, there are very, very few people representing the minorities or the diversity. And what is even more dramatic, the schools in the state of Minnesota in average have between 38 and 41% of diversity, that it's sustaining the budget of those public schools. So, and yet the representation, it is not in the school boards. And we can mention more and more kind of, levels of decision making where the diversity is not represented. From my perspective, and it is kind of if it is too early, no, it's too late. We are very late in making those reforms. And I guess the process has to follow the PRCB first and then the RCB. And from my perspective, we are now starting a process that should be started way, way long before. But we are in the right moment. We are at the right moment right now because we can bring a lot of information, and these kind of gatherings are really important. And the fact that more equitable democracy is supporting this kind of movement is even better, because we needed it right now. And we are creating alliances, we are creating more kind of reaching out, and that is, for me, the best point. And also, we need to create a better system. And that better system comes together with educating better our population, that it is being, somebody said before also, lied about so many things, even not only the police actions, but also how things work.
I guess I will just agree with that with April that every place, every time, we're going to face different situations. We have seen incredible success with ranked choice voting here in the Twin Cities and in other cities in Minnesota. We have seen. I'll also say that there, in some ways, it's not always just a fight between the two. There's always going to be single member positions like mayor, like governor, that you cannot make PRCV. You can't elect those positions with an STV system. We are really, when we're talking about STV, we're talking about for 4 districts. And we have seen that Minneapolis is an example that's like was able to adopt STV in certain positions because they already had multi-winner positions that existed for their parks board and for their tax board, and they were able to because of the suggestion of Gene say like, okay, we already have this multi-winner system. Well, we can just use STV. We can use the proportional system, but they didn't really take that step further because they didn't want to change the districts that already existed for the city council. So we did see that there are always going to be some limitations, and when it comes to educating and when it comes to implementing change, and we do have to consider the timing and the situation. But we also have to remember STV, ranked choice voting. These are also, again, it was mentioned earlier by other panelists, that these are also means to the ends, and the ends are passing the kinds of laws that we want to see reflect on our society, improving representation and equity, and that has been largely achieved with ranked choice voting in the Twin Cities. For now, as I previously mentioned, we also need to look at the future. How can we, when we make the change, how forward is that change going to last? And it's also important to recognize that no system is perfect. All systems are going to have problems, are going to have bad actors, and can be manipulated. It is a continuous work. No matter what system is adopted, that people are engaged and that people are pushing forward the right policies passed. I will ultimately agree that if the ultimate goal of electoral reform is PRCV, then yes, ranked choice voting can be a barrier to achieving PRCV, as in Minneapolis. The fact that in St. Paul, we have seen that the success of RCV kind of makes it hard to argue for yet another change, yet another transformation of an electoral system. And when the last change, we're still trying to figure out the effects, and so far all the effects that we have seen have achieved what we wanted to achieve. That being said, again, we can see that if you want to make that change more future-proof, then yes, there is ultimately the positive effect of having a future-proof system of PRCV that will ensure that as the demographic change, it will continue to be effective. And so like that is very much something that you're going to have to talk with your community. When you're talking with your community, don't just face the challenges that are existing right now, but look at the challenges that are coming into the future, given what you already know has happened. And so like those are the kind of things that how I would bring up the question that was brought up.
Thank you. Brian, last word on how far, how fast?
Yeah, I mean, we like to push it. So
That's the other Portland for you.
I think, and I think it's just kind of the world that I came from going into kind of nonprofits is that I've not been risk averse, and it's served me well. I mean, sometimes it won't, right? Does anybody play poker? Texas Hold'em specifically, cash game format. You sit in on one of these games, and first off, you've got to have the cash there, right, to sustain it. It is kind of like an investor who has a lot of money, but you're just playing hands to size up your opponents, and you're going to take losses. It's expected value, right? So I don't know if anybody understands probability, but you have to expect to have some losses, and you want to gauge what your opponents are doing. And in any kind of program, you want to think this way, and this is how I think we think. I don't want to speak too much for Jalen, but I don't want to, there's no cookie cutter approach. but I tend to think when we're talking about ranked choice voting, single winner and multi-winner, it gets more to the voter experience and how you actually vote. Rank them, right? Now, does one come before the other? How fast do you push it? I think it depends, but I tend to think that we don't think that way because proportional ranked choice voting gets at our guiding star, which is proportionality, which is different than a single winner running for mayor, governor, president, something like that, right? So they both accomplish some things with that intersection, but when we're talking about proportionality, it's proportional ranked choice voting. So when we're talking about a reform for a commission, any kind of legislative body, we push for that. And I don't think, in our view, at least in Oregon, voters in particular, because that's who pass it, distinguish. You've got the voting experience, you rank them, you've got this black box on how they're tabulated. Then you have your outcomes, right, which is proportionality. And we have an example now, a case study, a very large one, where 300,000 or 400,000 people use this system in Oregon to a very high degree of satisfaction. And we learned from that, like, what's important to do these things. It's education, right? So for the measures we've submitted, there's a component that is education is mandated for tax dollars to go towards this, right? Obviously, the trade-off is like, oh, this is going to be too expensive. And we expect those arguments, right? It's like, what's the price for good democracy? I don't know. But I tend to think keep pushing. At the same time, you have to be tuned into your communities, right? So there's an optimization program involved in this, right? As far as what's the input you're getting, but also what's feasible, because nationwide, how many people understand the difference and why your popular vote outcome is different from the Electoral College? I bet most folks don't get that, yet they still vote, right? Without understanding the mechanisms behind why somebody got elected, even though they didn't get the popular vote. So I know that's not a perfect analogy, but people just vote. It's about the voter experience. We know ranked choice voting, whether it relates to single or multi-winner, people might not understand it at first. There comes the education, but once people use it, overwhelmingly, it's very popular. That's the other thing, is we're very much empiricists with the Tribal Democracy Project. We're not interested in experimental systems that haven't been used. Proportional representation, proportional ranked choice voting has been used worldwide, right? It's about 150 years old. Ireland's been using it for, 100 years, right? And we were there a couple years ago. That, to me, is the gold standard for a functioning democracy if you ever get a chance to go over there, right? So, but long story short, we definitely like to push things, and let's see where it takes us. And it's okay to fail, right? I failed a lot. So.
Fail forward.
Yep.
We can clap for that. Yeah, we can clap for that. It's funny, when we were in Ireland, we keep looking over here because we have our friend from Ireland, who you'll be hearing from tonight. We interviewed folks about proportional representation in STV, and they just wanted to talk about their ballot and how they could rank folks. And we're like, oh, but aren't you going to tell us about the proportionality part of it? And they just talk about their voting experience. So when you said the thing about, the process is a black box, Brian, it's like, well, yeah, we don't have to explain all of the nitty gritty. We do need to focus on the outcomes, like you said, and what their experience is going to be, and how that is going to translate into the outcomes that they want. The other thing I wanted to pick up from the conversation that you all talked about is, and that also I heard from before, is that, like, our folks aren't stupid, and there's this argument that it's so complicated, and people of color are not going to get it, different language groups are not going to get it. And you said, Rodolfo, that, like, white voters, they fill out their ballots, they know how to do it really well. Well, it turns out when you invest in a community for education, that community will know how to vote. So why don't we educate everyone, right, in an equitable manner? So, language communities should have extra attention so that they can make up for the gap that has been created systemically over time, right? That has been created intentionally over time. Okay, so I think we might have time for one question from the audience, one, maybe two, depending on how long we are. I got a hand over here. Can I just say hi? Hi.
All I see is the bright lights.
I know. I feel like I'm outside. My skin's gonna look so good.
Hello. Ooh. Hi, friends. My name is Evelyn Dowling. I am a senior fellow at Expand Democracy. I have a question for April. So, when you were discussing, right, how a group becomes oppressed, marginalized, it's usually when key knowledge, like knowledge and data, is taken away, right? It's firewalled, it's blocked, it's inaccessible. And you say that you and at the NOA, right, has data that you are sort of building yourselves. What is that data, and what have you gleaned from that data?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So we're actually just in the process of getting out into the communities to collect this data. And so we're not going to hold it at NOA because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the communities that will be sharing this data. So there's two components. The first component is, what is the community curious about themselves? So they want, what do they need to know in order to advocate for the different things that they're going to need, whether it's policy, whether it's funding, whether it's legislative change. They're going to actually design their own set of questions. And then we've been doing the Indigenous Futures Survey for a while now. Our partners Illuminative Sunset, and so that isn't continuing, but we still have the results from that national survey over the two last iterations, which had about 15,000 respondents. So we also have some trends, some national trends over those two iterations. So we're going to ask those questions as well as the local questions. And so what we may discover is, one community is very interested in learning about food security or housing or sovereignty or representation. We won't really know until we bring everybody together. Actually, I'm going straight from this conference to our training in Detroit from May 3rd through the 6th, where we're bringing all of these organizers together to work with our survey consultants on designing their survey questions so that they can go back into the community, have these interviews over the month of June. We'll take that back. We'll do some analysis with our consultants and then bring them back together in the fall, right before they go out for the election, to do civic engagement, to be able to learn how to tell the story of their survey and what is it telling them about their community. How do they help their communities connect those results to civic engagement, to the next leaders, to holding accountability for the people that are holding office. So it's really a multi-step process, a multi-year process. It's an investment in all these different communities to do that work, but it starts with, what are they curious about and what do they need to know? And then how do we have those conversations?
Thank you. Let's see. I think we can push it and do one more question. Anyone got a burning question? Oh, yes.
Comment?
Check.
It's one short. I'm Jerry Lynch. I was formerly executive director of the Alliance Party of Northern Ireland, and I just want to make an observation to Rodrigo. I take your point. I can also foresee the risk that ranked choice voting in single-member districts might be seen as enough reform and act as a barrier to proportional ranked choice voting. Why I don't think it is in practice. I think for a lot of voters and for a lot of politicians who aren't, like electoral system nerds like we might be, the barrier is getting over the idea of voting for one person. Once you've got it in your head, you can vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then actually the exact method you use to count the votes and apportion the seats is a much smaller problem. So while in the short term, people in the Twin Cities area might say, well, St. Paul already has ranked choice voting, why go further than that? In the medium to longer term, actually people are getting used to the idea that you vote preferentially, and I think that makes further reform in the fullness of time more rather than less likely.
What if we're in a rush, though, and we want it now?
I want everything now.
Thank you. All right. Oh, yes. I'm definitely going to give the mic to Jean.
Well, 100% agree with that comment. Voters just love the power of ranking their ballot. You give them the power of choice, and everything else that comes after that melts away. We can implement and we can improve. To me, it's a continuum. not either or, and I really don't want the movement to get caught in any either or trap, number one. The second comment I want to make is, and I didn't hear any of you say it, regardless of what a community really wishes to adopt, is always based on a problem to be solved. And so the first and most important question is there a problem here in our community that one of these systems can help solve? And then you can always rely on we can do better because we have a problem to solve.
Right.
Thank you. You could just set that down. Okay. All right. I think it is time for us to wrap up this panel. But no, don't leave. Don't stand. I have one parting thing. Okay. So this is a challenge to you all. Finish this sentence. Because of the work we're doing today, tomorrow my people will. You want to go reverse order?
Yeah.
Let's start from. Sorry, Brian.
Say that again.
Because of the work we're doing today for proportional representation and electoral reform, tomorrow my people will.
I actually knew what you said. I just wanted more time to think.
Because of the work we're doing today,
Yeah.
tomorrow my people will.
Just trying not something that's not so cliche.
We can go cliche. Cliche
Easy,
equals classic.
right? It's just such an easy out.
If you steal mine, I'm going to be so mad.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go 7 generations.
Yes, do it, do it.
before. Yeah, so because of the work we do today, all of our people, 7 generations down the road, we want to lay the contours for better outcomes, right? The choices we make today are going to be different, and the problems are going to be different than they are 100, 200, 300 years down the road. But when we have a system where our communities are empowered that lets everybody else after us to have a system that works for them so that they can address those issues. So.
All right.
Brian.
Because of the work we're doing today, tomorrow my people will.
Be in relationship and balanced, and not just our Native communities, but all of the communities that we intersect with, because it really, truly is going to take all of us to do this work and not just for our own benefit. That's what in relationship means. It means we are in relationship and balanced with our human relatives, with our plant relatives, with our animal relatives. We live in balance, and that's what this is going to make happen.
Thank you.
Because of the work we do today, tomorrow our people will be in community with all our people of our land.
And because of the work we are doing today, tomorrow our people are going to see themselves speaking for themselves, bringing their voices, putting them together, and creating a more equitable society.
Hey, if you made it to the end of the video, you must have liked what you saw. So you should head over to our website, equitabledemocracy.org, so you can sign up for our mailing list and stay up to date on all the new things we're working on. Also, if you want to head back to our YouTube channel, you can listen to our award-winning podcast, watch riveting documentaries, or check out new content just like this.